One of the things that for me that I've always found amazing to women, especially in for-profit or levels of corporate America,
Mhm.
I've always played in a safe zone, right? It's real easy for me to be president CEO of an organization that's focused on the issues that I've encountered.
Right.
But when you're walking into financial, other things, Major League Baseball, football, and different things in corporate America as a Black woman, um, how do you address those when you sit at those boardrooms? And sometimes you're the only person who looks like you.
Mhm.
In this power dynamic that society says is normal of the older white man
Right.
and different things of that nature, how do you still in those moments embrace your leadership, embrace your position, but still maintain who you are and
Yeah.
the dynamics not to get beat up in those rooms?
Yeah. Yeah. It takes a tremendous amount of resilience, which is a word that I know you are very familiar with. Any space that you're in, you have to be very clear and confident in the fact that you are in that space because of you. And that is something I say to Black women all the time. We can't be afraid of taking up the space we deserve. We're here for a reason. No one did me a favor, right? I worked for this. So I'm here for a reason and I'm going to show up in that space in that confidence that I am here and I have something additive to give. And so I, again, always just remembering who I am. I've never been someone who tries to emulate someone else. There are
Mhm.
definitely certain traits of people that I gravitate to and that I think are really important, but I always have to put my Janessa spin on it. And I think about one of the probably best slash worst pieces of advice I ever got from someone was someone who said to me, and it was actually another woman, and she said to me, you're going to have to turn your Janessa down. You're gonna have to, if you want to be successful, you're gonna have to turn your Janessa down. Verbatim is what she said to me. And I remember looking at her, and I was very junior in my career, and saying, "Oh my God, does that mean I can't be successful as me, showing up as myself? I am a fast talking, hand moving. That is who I am. I'm a Caribbean person. I have a little spice in me. I can't help it." And her saying that to me, it almost shut me down. And then I just decided, you know what? This is one piece of advice I'm just not going to take.
Okay.
And that's been, I think, what's been helpful to me. So being in those rooms and operating within constructs that were not built for me or built with me in mind, it's always about grounding myself in that resilience, remembering my mother, remembering never take no for an answer, but remembering that I'm there for a reason. I have a unique perspective to add, and I'm not going to shy away from adding it. I'm not going to shy away from that. It doesn't matter. I don't care what school folks went to and how many degrees and like all the pedigree. It doesn't really affect me. I think it's more, let's be clear, sometimes it can be daunting, of course, right? And intimidating. But I just always have to ground myself in I am here for a reason. And I know that. I know that there's something that I can add that you cannot. And so I just have to be very clear about using that and learning the game a little bit, to be honest. I say this to women, we have to learn the game, and the game was not taught to women who may look like you or I. And so I had to learn the game from people who didn't look like me, but who
Okay.
took an interest in me and saw something in me early on that I didn't see in myself. And so I took that sponsorship and I took the fact that they would use their political capital on my behalf. Oh, I had to learn the game, Dan. I had to learn the game because then I needed to teach other women how to play the game that way and play it to their advantage. And so
Exactly.
for me, that's sort of how I ground myself. But I think for you, sort of very similarly, right? And one of the words that come to mind when I think of you and the conversations we've had is fearless. So I know there has to be certain traits for you when you're operating in spaces where folks are probably like, well, what's this woman doing here?
Mhm.
What do you draw back on? What do you rely on when you're in those spaces to keep you going? What are those traits that you draw on to keep you moving?
So, and you're right. Resilience is one. That's actually my license plate on my car. Kind of created with a Z. And no, because the reason is because you're right. Especially for me having a criminal background and being in the world of criminal justice,
Yeah.
the judges and prosecutors who prosecuted and convicted me became my colleagues. The correctional facility where I served time, who didn't want to hire me as a cook in the kitchen,
Mm,
actually became a program up under my portfolio when I became director of reentry, right? So, but I didn't like, okay, like, let me show you now. I addressed it with a level of expertise
yeah.
that as you said, I brought something different. And far too long in this country, people who have been impacted or people who look like me and you have been excluded from the tables of power that make decisions that impact our communities.
I want to build on something you talked about, Deanna. So obviously we're talking about women, we're talking about women's leadership. And I think I can probably describe a couple of your leadership qualities. I can describe a couple of mine. But one of the things that you and I have connected on is this need for female community
Mhm.
and the importance of, some may call it a personal board of directors. That's what my girlfriends and I call it, a clique, your crew, your posse, whatever it may be, right? But this community of women that embrace each other, that uplift each other, that correct each other when need be. Talk to me about the importance of that for you in your life, and sort of, especially at this point in your life, now being the CEO of an organization, right? The air tends to be kind of thin. When, you know, you've talked to me about the stats for Black women leading nonprofits and all of that, right? How important is your board of directors now at this stage in your career?
Wow. It is one of the most important aspects of my success. And I'll say that because there one or two things can happen. Either I can talk myself into a mess, or if I don't have somebody to run it past, or I will go run, hide, and give up. Right. So it's one of those things. So what is that middle, Deanna? What is that middle that keeps you grounded? And it is women who I trust, who are going to tell me the real, even when it doesn't feel good. Um, and and then on the other hand, I think I want to give up every 90 days or be like, this is too much. I can't do this. But you have this group of women who actually pour into you why it's so important what you do, why your voice is needed in that space, in that moment. That is not about you. That you talking about giving up is you really take being selfish and self-centered, Deanna. You're making this all about you. This isn't about you. You've just been utilized as the vessel to get the message across. How dare you give up on the assignment? Um, and so that has become my really my strength. I can cry on their shoulders.
Yeah.
I can cry. I can call them when I'm walking into a meeting that I've never been in with elected officials, terrified to death, and get the pump talk that I need. They just pour into me on a different level, and it is so important to have that. That's outside your world, that doesn't exist around your world. You have to build that support network. That's certain, as you said, that posse of where you're going to be able to talk, but also who respects your personal and your professional boundaries as well.
Right.
So finding that for three, four, five women, that this is how you click. And because you're that to them too,
Yeah.
you've all built this together. I think it is extremely important. And it has been one of the foundations to my success.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talked about this before. I completely agree. I do not know where I would be without my personal board of directors. We have our group chat that every day we're talking about things that are happening in our personal and professional lives and our family lives. But you need that. You need that. And what's lovely about it is knowing that this group of women, we all have each other's back and we all have each other's best interest.
Mm-hmm.
Any advice I'm going to give Deanna knows it's coming from a good place. And any advice I'm going to receive from Deanna, I know it's coming from a good place because we only want to see each other win.
Yeah.
And there's such, again, power in that, so much power and collective power in that as well, which I love.
So I want to ask you, understanding Dress for Success worldwide, everything they're doing, what was the attraction for you to Dress for to join and become part of this organization?
This idea of appealing to the outsider.
Mm,
At my core, that's who I am. At my core, that's who I am. From the story I told before, to, being an immigrant, the strange accent, coming to a new place, I know what it feels like to be an outsider and to not always feel like you fit in. And what I love about Dress for Success is that it is, to your point, so much more than the physical clothing. It's
mm,
so much more. That is clearly an important part. It is clearly a very valuable part, a very critical part, but it's so much more than that. It is essentially women's empowerment.
mhm.
That is what Dress for Success is about. And I'm all about that. I'm
Right.
all about that. I'm all about the outsider feeling seen because I think it's important, especially for women. And I think specifically for women of color. And I know Dress for Success, the majority of the clients are women of color. And that
Hmm.
matters.
Yeah.
Think about the story you just told, Deanna. You
Yeah.
going to school, that knock on effect has led to 17 other women doing the same.
Mhm.
17 other women. And who knows what that knock on effect will be from each of those 17 for 17 other women, right?
Yeah.
So it becomes a multiple, it
Mhm.
compounds over time. And that for me is just something that you have to value. You have to respect it and you have to value it. And so what Dress for Success has done in terms of empowering women to embrace their own magic, to embrace their own story, as we talked about the power and the authenticity, the power in the story. I think what they have done with giving women back their power, you can't deny that. You can't deny that. And so for me, I just gravitated to the organization for that alone. And then getting to meet someone like you and getting to hear some of the stories. I mean, it just was the icing on the cake. But ultimately, the organization just does a phenomenal job of reminding women of their magic. And
Mhm.
I always think that that's important.
At Just Leadership, we do leadership development and training. And one of the things, cliches that we use is a lot of times, especially for people who have been marginalized and oppressed, we don't even know we have power, right? We've never been in positions where we've been able to exercise that power outside of our family structure. So when you talk about unleashing power, we have this saying that leaders or empowerment is not tamed,
Yeah.
it's caged. And we just want to open the cage. And for me, that's what I could say Dress for Success did. It opened the cage for me to walk out and actually embrace my empowerment, my understand and own it.
Hmm.
Because there's a difference of someone saying you're empowered, but once you own that, the trajectory of your life changes because no one again can strip you of that once you realize you are power within yourself.
Yeah.
So thank you. I want to say thank you for being a part of Dress for Success, which I know has an impact on women across this country, even for those who don't even understand the impact yet, right? Is this huge impact that they're having. And I just appreciate women like you and other people who have joined the board to ensure that this organization keeps moving and having a direct impact across the country.
Yeah, it's critical. It has to.
Yeah.
Dress for Success has to continue to be successful because of what it does for women. So it just, I think at this point, we've recognized what the year that 2020 has been and the spotlight that was put on marginalized communities in 2020. We can't take our foot off the gas with organizations like Dress for Success.